Some of the top triggers of hair loss are dysbiosis, which is an unhealthy, unbalanced gut, vitamin and mineral deficiencies, or even surpluses, hormonal issues such as thyroid issues, high DHT, type of testosterone, PCOS, and more. And fourth would be alopecia, which is an autoimmune condition. There's different types of alopecia. Also stress. Stress is a huge trigger of hair loss, and that was part of my hair loss equation. Either mental, physical, or emotional stress, PT, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and so forth. In toxins such as mold and heavy metals, drastic changes in diet or exercise, chronic inflammation, food sensitivities or allergies, especially gluten, detoxification issues, poor circulation, and even candida yeast, fungal overgrowth, and pathogens and parasites. And there's more.
Welcome to Rebuilding My Health Radio, where we showcase natural and integrative health success stories to inspire hope and healing in those with chronic and complex illnesses. I'm your host, Casey Hibbard. I personally reversed my autoimmunity and am on a mission to help others heal too. Each episode, we bring you groundbreaking stories on people who have eased and often actually eliminated the symptoms of autoimmunity, neurological disorders, chronic pain, women's health challenges, Lyme disease, mental health struggles, and more. We're here to empower you with actionable information and inspiration to help you heal the root causes of illness and get back to feeling like yourself. Well, hello and welcome back. If you or someone you know is struggling with hair loss, this episode will offer lots of insights. Hair loss actually affects about 50% of women at some point in their lives. Today, I'm talking with Julie Olson about women's hair loss and the many potential causes of it. And what you'll learn is that if you can identify the unique cause or causes for you, you may be able to reverse it and regrow hair. Julie Olson did just that. She was working in her dream job in California when health challenges upended her life and career. First, her mom was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, leading her to move back to Colorado. And then Julie herself hit some health roadblocks, which included gut issues, fatigue, and hair loss. Her mother's diagnosis and her own health crisis led her to study functional medicine nutrition, which ultimately helped her as well as her mother. Julie uncovered the causes of her health challenges, which included celiac disease, Epstein-Barr virus, the gut bacteria H. pylori, thyroid issues, and food sensitivities. When she addressed these, she rebuilt her health and regrew her hair. In my talk with Julie, you'll hear the conditions associated with her own health crash and hair loss, the lifestyle changes and solutions she found to regain her health and her hair, the many causes of hair loss that she has uncovered, some of the lab tests that she typically runs to uncover root causes of illness and hair loss. These days, Julie Olson is a triple certified functional medicine nutritionist. All this inspired her to go back and change her career. So now, with over 10 years of experience working with functional and integrative practitioners, Julie has transformed thousands of people's health. She is known to investigate, discover, and communicate root cause resolutions to rebuild health and naturally regrow hair. Founder of Fortitude Functional Nutrition, she specializes in female hair loss, gut health, and gluten issues, plus offers personalized programs that yield long-lasting results. You can find her online at julieolson.com. That's JULIEOLSON.com. On social media, she's at Julie Olson FN. In the episode, we mentioned several studies, and we will link to those in the show notes. Also, Julie is offering a discount on Nutrafol, a hair growth supplement. You can see the details for how to grab that in the show notes. And you can find a link also to the silk pillowcase that she mentions in the episode. All right, I know you'll gain a lot of inspiration and insights from my talk with Julie. And now for our inspiring conversation. Well, hello, Julie, and welcome to the Rebuilding My Health Radio podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today to talk about your personal health success story and what you've learned personally through your experience as well as being a practitioner.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of go back to the beginning, to when you first started hitting some health roadblocks. What did that look like and how did it affect your life?
Well, it actually started indirectly with a phone call. And that's when I was working as a senior media research analyst at Warner Brothers in Burbank, California. And the call was that my mother had stage 3 breast cancer and was going into emergency surgery the next day. So my first epiphany was that even though I was working my dream job and really happy, my epiphany was that she's my mother and health is the most important. So I ended up quitting and moving back to my hometown of Denver to help support her through the ordeal. And in that transition, I worked for TV stations and I was trying to research and discover why she got so sick. And what I found was that healthy food and lifestyle. And the more I researched, the more I discovered I was putting blinders on my own health and found out that I wasn't just tired from my late night lifestyle. I had really high Epstein-Barr virus. I had H. pylori. I had celiac disease. I had a lot of gut issues, a ton of food sensitivities. But the worst was when my hair started falling out in clumps. Yeah, that was the worst of it all. So I decided to quit my job, my media career, and I went back to school to study functional nutrition, which is different than dietetics, and it's totally hooked. And I like to tell you that it was in time to help my mother because she totally changed her lifestyle and her way of eating. And she today is a breast cancer survivor. She's 88 years old now.
Oh, wow. How fantastic. That's a success story for sure. Yeah. So you sort of, kind of guided her with everything that you were learning to, be the healthiest person she could be while you were doing the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. So your health stuff had probably started before your mom's health crisis, but you were kind of ignoring it. Like, oh, I'm not sleeping well. I'm, stressed, just kind of ignoring it, I guess. Is that
absolutely
fair to say? Yeah.
Probably like you. I mean, I was a type A personality. I was in a very, very competitive job. And I was on the party train. I had up late a lot. I didn't prioritize my health or sleep. And I just thought it was because of my lifestyle that I didn't feel that great. But once I slowed down and started to put the pieces together, I was horrified. And I was really a hot mess. And I get a lot of women in my same situation. And the same thing is they've got a lot of different health problems, but the worst and their biggest complaint is their hair thinning or their hair loss. So that's why I decided to specialize in that.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting. And I'm curious, so did you pretty quickly go down a functional medicine route or functional nutrition route, or did you try some conventional approaches first for yourself?
I was so disappointed and discouraged because all the doctors, all the practitioners I talked to said there's nothing I can do about my hair loss except get on some lifelong medications, which of course have side effects, or Rogaine, serums, again, have side effects. If you stop, your hair falls out anyway. They don't get to the root cause, or pricey, painful procedures. Again, that's another reason I am on a mission to help women give them options and hope for natural options to resolve their hair loss naturally, because I don't want anyone, and I don't want men or women to feel like I did, like there's nothing out there, that you have to resort to all these horrible things that the billion-dollar hair industry or conventional dermatology, that's all they know and that's all they recommend.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm looking at it at a functional medicine and nutritional approach.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So why is women's hair loss so common?
Well, it is. 50% of women in their lifetime will have hair thinning and hair loss, significant hair loss. And they'll be told there's nothing they can do about it naturally, like me. So frustrating. And the reason why is because our scalp hair follicles are a microbiome within itself. And when something's out of balance in our body, our scalp hair follicles are also a mini organ, and they have the third highest turnover in the body, and they have a very, very high active metabolism. That being said, they acquire a lot of nutrients to absorb, good, adequate nutrient absorption. And fortunately, when we absorb our nutrients, it goes first to our vital organs to keep us alive. So whatever is left over goes to our hair. So if we have some imbalance in our body, we're going to lose our hair. So I think that a reason why it's such a problem worldwide with hair loss, not only with women, but of course with men, it's even worse. And now it's happening in third world countries and even in China, where there was never a history of hair loss, because these people are living these fast lifestyles and not paying attention to the basics of, healthy nutrition and all the things you probably talk about on your podcast about getting to the root cause of your health.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting that it's increasing globally, sounds like. Probably the toxicities as well, right?
Right. Well, look, some of the top triggers of hair loss are dysbiosis, which is an unhealthy, unbalanced gut, vitamin and mineral deficiencies, or even surpluses, hormonal issues such as thyroid issues, high DHT, type of testosterone, PCOS, and more. And fourth would be alopecia, which is an autoimmune condition. There's different types of alopecia. Also, stress. Stress is a huge trigger of hair loss. And that was part of my hair loss equation. Mm-hmm. Either mental, physical, or emotional stress, PT, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and so forth. In toxins such as mold and heavy metals, drastic changes in diet or exercise, chronic inflammation, food sensitivities or allergies, especially gluten, detoxification issues, poor circulation, and even candida, yeast, fungal overgrowth, and pathogens and parasites. And there's more.
I think crazy. I think I remember you saying that there's like a dozen or more potential causes or categories of causes of hair loss.
Sure. So I put them into 4 functional categories of hormonal, inflammatory, digestive, and stress-induced. And there can be overlap with those. I also have a quiz on my website so you can find out which type you have. It isn't important too, because you can go down a rabbit hole and trying to fix it if you're not fixing the right type of hair loss.
Right. Yeah. That's super important to zero in on that cause and type. So kind of walk us through what you found for yourself in terms of the causes and how you went about addressing them.
Well, for me, again, it was the stress from my mother's situation and just discovering I was celiac, or very highly gluten sensitive, which made me anemic. And those are the main points. I mean, I had dysbiosis. My gut was a complete mess. I wasn't sleeping. Those all play a role into it, but those are the main. And I stopped gluten back then. I mean, I haven't eaten gluten since I discovered that. And Casey, I was actually walking into a dermatologist's office because I didn't know of any other options at that time. And before I got into studying nutrition and so forth. And luckily I walked out, and that was part of the reason why I took the path I did. But I think I'm getting away from your question.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, that's interesting though. You had gone into a dermatologist and maybe didn't like what they said, or yeah,
I didn't even meet to the appointment. I ended up not even going to the appointment. I sat there in the waiting room. I'm like, even back then, I didn't know anything about it. It just did not resonate with me of why would I have to be on some like Rogaine or some medications for the rest of my life. It's not curing, it's not treating me, it's not getting to the root cause. And again, that's before I even knew anything about all this functional medicine and nutrition stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So you cut out gluten, you reduced your stress, you worked on gut healing, and specifically when you say dysbiosis, do you mean like Candida or SIBO, or what did you find?
I found H. pylori, the biggest things, H. pylori, a lot of food sensitivities, and a little bit of SIBO and a little bit of Candida overgrowth.
Okay. Interesting.
So a lot of gut dysbiosis.
Right. Yeah. So you worked on healing your gut, cut out gluten, and any other diet changes, or mainly just cutting out gluten?
And dairies as best I can. I'm 100% off gluten. And since then I've gone on and gotten 2 certifications as a gluten-free practitioner. So I'm updated on all the studies. And there is a huge connection between gluten consumption and hair loss. So I'm very mindful of that.
Interesting. Yeah. If you've got some studies that you could point me to, I can put them in the show notes, because I think that would be really interesting for people to see because I think people mostly attribute gluten to gut issues. Like, oh, when I eat gluten, I don't have gut issues, so it's not a problem for me. Yeah. So
there's even studies on H. pylori and hair loss, which I had as well, which is a gut. Yeah. Right. I'll pass those on. Let me make a note of that.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. So when you made changes, about how long did it take for your hair, to really start regrowing?
It took about 6 months
to really start to see new growth, probably.
Yeah, but I hung in there.
Yeah. Because I imagine you were feeling better in other ways too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, along the way, getting more energy, getting more hair, and yeah, fantastic. So I get what maintenance protocol now do you follow?
Well, I love to cook now. I make sure I cook enough for extra meals. I bring food with me. I keep hydrated. I prioritize sleep and movement. I don't do fast. Back in the day, I did fast foods all the time. I didn't know. I simplify it as PFC. P being quality protein, 20 grams every meal. F as in healthy fats at every meal. And C as in complex carbohydrates every meal, like half your plate and good vegetables. Simplify.
Got it. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. And is that when you work with other women on finding the root causes and trying to reverse their hair loss, do you find that the time frame is varies widely, or is it about the same, kind of regardless of the cause?
It varies widely. It does. Some of these women, they're within 30, 90 days, they're seeing hair regrowth. I had this one client. She said she had to cut her hair before she went to her hairdressing appointment because it got so long and it was in her way. Her bangs had gotten too, she saw tremendous growth very quickly.
Wow. Very cool. So, I mean, I guess tell me more about what you're finding among your clients. Oh, COVID. COVID is another reason we haven't talked about the COVID shed. What do you think is going on with that?
COVID shed is stress induced, is called chronic telogen effluvium. That's a type of hair loss that normally grows back, but it really should be addressed the same way that I address it with my clients to have the most success, because it also has a component of inflammation, digestive, and hormonal. And let me point out something just to stress the fact that our digestive health, there's a known association between gut dysbiosis, inflammation, leaky gut, malabsorption, IBS, hormonal imbalances, and inevitably hair loss. And I call it the gut reboot reset. And I have a published peer-reviewed abstract on it. And I have 4 case studies on here. All of them have severe hair loss. 3 of them have alopecia universalis. That's hair loss not only on their head, but their entire body. And all 4 of these subjects were told they would never grow their hair back. One was a woman. Anyway, one was a 20-year-old male. He had resistant C. diff. The other was a 38 male. Again, both of these had alopecia universalis. The 38-year-old had that's all he had, is he just had alopecia universalis. The female also had colitis. And my favorite was an 86-year-old male who had a history of colon cancer, diarrhea, and depression. So all of these, I even have before and after pictures on here of their hair. They did what's called a fecal microbial transplant. And within months, they grew their hair back. Now, this is not something that you can easily get, but it's on my abstract. And I want to mention it today with you because it proves the point that if you get your gut healthy, not only can you grow hair, which you've been told you'll never be able to grow, you can resolve your other health issues.
Wow. That's powerful. And 3 of them were men, you said.
3 of them are men.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the before and after pictures right now. And this one guy is completely bald.
Wow. Yeah. And I think the attitude with men is it's genetic and there's nothing really that can be done. So super interesting. Yeah, I would love to link to that.
And let's talk about that, the genetic link or not. It's the elephant in the room.
Right, right.
So let's talk about that. What do you know about epigenetics?
A bit, just that, right, just because you have the genes doesn't mean that they turn on for certain things, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's even been studies of identical twins. One lost all his hair, the other never lost any hair, and they are claiming it's lifestyle based, again, epigenetics. So there's some genes that you don't have to turn on. They're mostly the metabolic genes.
Wow.
And there are specific genes. I have the top, let's see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 12 genes, top genes linked to hair loss. But again, that doesn't mean that they have to be expressed. Mm-hmm. Just like, both my mother and my sister had breast cancer, and I have those genes, but I'm doing everything I can not to express them. So you can do the same for hair loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And for many things. Yeah. So Julie, when you work with someone, given that there can be so many different causes, I assume testing, so chatting with them, but also testing is huge to really zero in on the causes. So Yeah. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. That's the best way to go about it.
Yeah. And you're probably doing tests that are tests that many conventional practitioners are not necessarily doing, right?
Right, right. Because most of them can only do tests that the insurance will cover. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do blood work, but I'll do different blood markers that the conventional doctor won't look at. Even something as simple as I'll do a whole thyroid panel. I'll do a whole iron panel, even looking at the saturation, because you can get either too little iron or too much iron, and both those can cause hair loss. And I'll do stool testing, hormone testing, nutrient testing, food testing, like for sensitivities, intolerances,
Mm-hmm.
allergies,
Mm-hmm.
and even the genetic testing.
Yeah. Right. Right. Great. And one thing that I've found, I feel like a lot of people think that hair loss is a thyroid issue, mostly a thyroid issue. Like from your experience, like what percent of women have some thyroid issue related to their
Oh,
hair
yeah,
loss?
it is. And I'm hypothyroid myself. So it definitely is linked to hair loss. You have to keep under control, but you keep that under control by the same ways you keep your other health under control.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the hormones, people don't realize that our hormones are created in our gut anyway. That's where they originate.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get everything else under control, including, get your gut healthy and so forth, then that will most likely resolve itself. It doesn't mean that, I'm just part of your team. I'm not saying that stop seeing your endocrinologist or what have you if you have a thyroid issue. You should still do that. And some of these women still need to be on thyroid medication. But
Mm-hmm.
if you get everything else more into balance, then often I see these women coming not maybe off their medication or decreasing their medication. And of course, that definitely, there's a huge role in hair loss with either hypo or hyperthyroidism. I work with women that have Hashimoto's or have Graves' disease.
So it can go either way. Hair loss can be associated. Yeah. That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah. And, I think it's important because I've heard this story of women going, "Oh, I don't have a thyroid issue. I went to my doctor. They ran a thyroid test and didn't find anything." So
yeah, you're exactly right, because they just ran the TSH, which doesn't tell you much of anything unless it's way out of balance.
Right. Yeah. So just to kind of educate folks, what are some of the important markers on a thyroid test that you would run?
I would do that, the TSH, which everyone runs, but I would do the T3, the T4, the reverse T3, and the free T3.
Lots of T's.
Yeah, lots of T's.
Got it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because that's going to uncover like the Hashimoto's, the Graves, the autoimmune component of, thyroid.
Yeah. And you can check for the antibodies for those particular conditions. For instance, I have hypothyroidism, but I do not have Hashimoto's.
Got it. Okay.
It's pretty rare, but I think it's just because I have it in check. But as far as those blood tests, I'll also run like a complete blood count with the differential, but I'll look at it functionally as I will a comprehensive metabolic panel, lipid panel, a blood sugar panel, because also if your blood sugar's out of balance, that can lead to hair loss. Homocysteine, the CRP, copper, ceruloplasmin, zinc. I'll look at the ratios and the balance of that. I'll even look at the human transforming growth factor beta 1. That's looking at inflammation from a different way. Parathyroid and calcium. You can check magnesium, but I always try to even double check the vitamin D's on a test, because it's really important to keep that in check for hair loss and everything else. And it should your results should be between 50 and 80 nanograms per milliliter to be healthy. Mm-hmm. And then I'll often check for the Epstein-Barr virus because that's also linked to hair loss.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, I do these at LabCorp, but if you tell your doctor to do this, most chances are they won't run these the way I do, if at all. I mean, they'll do like a couple of them they'll do, but they won't look at them functionally.
Right. Exactly. Because I think one thing that's interesting that I've learned is the ranges are different in functional medicine. The ranges of concern, so you may get conventional lab work and it'll show, the ranges that are normal or healthy, but functional medicine might go, flag that and say, no, it's actually out of our range or whatnot for being healthy. So yeah, it's so interesting. So yeah. So after all this for you personally, how's your health today and hair growth?
It's good. It's all good. I am 59 though, and menopause also plays a role in that because in menopause, you stop producing or produce very little estrogen and progesterone. So that can also lead to hair loss. And of course, I don't take any bioidentical hormones because of the breast cancer, estrogen-based breast cancer within my family. I do struggle. And I think, hair thinning is very, very common in menopause. So that's something to consider and just be aware of too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Because someone might be chugging along and feel like they're, doing all the things that they need to do and they're pretty healthy. And then menopause hits and they're like, wait a minute, why is my hair falling out? And not realize that can be the cause.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, Julie, any, kind of last tips that you would offer for those experiencing hair loss?
Well, okay. So if you feel like you're losing more than 100 or 150 hairs a day for a number of months, you need to address it with someone like myself, because what can happen is the scalp hair follicles can miniaturize. They call it miniaturization. And when this happens, the shedding can start to just proliferate faster and you can get scarring within your hair follicles. And at that point, it's almost impossible to reverse that. So don't ignore it. I mean, again, there's a lot of reasons, but most likely, even if it's an alopecia, autoimmune type of hair loss, that can also be reversed if it's caught soon enough.
Right. Fantastic. Yeah. So there are some cases where may not be possible to reverse it, but in many, many cases, it's possible, sounds like.
Right. And then also, you can do some hacks. I mean, get some movement in. You need the circulation to your scalp. So doing like a down dog in yoga, or even standing on your head or hands, or getting an inversion table and doing that for 3 minutes a day. Sleeping on a silk pillowcase.
Oh, wow.
I have one on my website under favorites that's machine washable.
Oh, wow.
So that's really good, not only for your hair, but your skin, because it retains 43% of the moisture and it doesn't pull on your hair. And then, even massaging your scalp and getting those nutrients. I'm going to offer a 15% discount to your listeners for supplement line called Nutrafol. It's a really, really great functional medicine approach to hair loss. They have it for special formulas for men and women. They're separate.
Great. And then the info for that, will that be in the show notes?
Yes.
Can we put that in the show notes? Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. That's fantastic. And can people find that on your site?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I've heard about that. Good. Well, thank you so much, Julie. I think this has been super interesting and enlightening about all the various causes behind hair loss and what people might look into, and also gives people hope that once they've gone, like once it's started, that it isn't a one-way thing, that it is possible to potentially get some hair regrowth or lots of hair regrowth. So let people know where they can find and follow you.
Great. My website is Julie Olson with an O-N, OLSON.com. Or my social media handles are Julie Olson FN, as in functional nutritionist.
Great. And that is you're on Facebook and Instagram?
On all of them.
On all of them.
Not great. That active, but you can find me there.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So julieolson.com and then Julie Olson FN. All right. Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming on to share your personal story and your wisdom as a practitioner. I know it will be helpful and inspiring for folks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for getting this information out there and giving people the opportunity to look at their hair loss a different way and give them resources and hope, because it's not a done deal if you address it soon enough. So thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think not enough people know it. So hopefully this helps get the word out. So, all right, take care. Thanks for listening to Rebuilding My Health Radio. If you enjoyed this story, you'll find lots more episodes on how others turned around chronic illness or complex illnesses. And be sure to check out our online magazine where we showcase natural and integrative health success stories. There, you can also grab our free guide, 4 ways to ease, reverse, or eliminate chronic or complex illnesses. It's based entirely on insights from interviewing hundreds of people with health turnaround stories. Learn what worked for them. And if you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and support us by rating it and leaving a review. It helps a ton with others finding us. We truly appreciate it. And remember, the information on this show is for educational and inspirational purposes only and is not intended to replace the advice of qualified professionals. Keep in mind that what works for one person may not work for another. And always consult your healthcare practitioners before beginning new approaches or treatments. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you back here next time.